Hi, it's Robin. We're just starting the progressions of Jupiter and Saturn, our class number 9. And we're going to do both Jupiter and Saturn today. Okay. They don't move a lot. A lot of people don't use the outer planets for progression, but they do move enough that they make certain changes. And these changes represent significant shifts in your life when they happen. So I found they're too valuable not to use them. And then there's many with these other planets. When you get into the deeper, this sort of deeper divisions of degrees, the degrees, planets moving, they move through, the other planets move through degrees, and as they move through different degrees, they have different symbols for the degrees, and there's probably 20 or 30 different, 25, maybe 35 different books on degrees of the zodiac. They've all been written more psychically or intuitively, some mathematically, some systematically. So there's different ways people have written their interpretation of the meaning for each degree. So instead of just for a sign, every degree has its own unique meaning. And some people have made it in terms of the sign in Cartographic Beautiful. Some people have made it in terms of the stars. Some people have had psychics, intuitives get symbols and images and then interpret the images, how they relate to the signs of the zodiac. And one of them more, Safariel, Alan Leo, they had theirs. Cherubel, but probably Mark Edmund Jones and the Sabian symbols were the strongest, where Jerry used them too. And they probably work fine for white Anglo-Saxon Christian colonial people. Okay, so for inside that bubble, they work fine, but if you're outside of that bubble, they tend to be not so good. So you have to be able to get past, interpret it in that culture and get beyond it to be able to use a lot of them well. I use the I Ching and the degrees of each degree of the zodiac is a line of the I Ching, and then they can go deeper into the hexagram for the line of for the degree, and a line for every 10 minutes, and there's a hexagram for every 10 minutes. So you can go down deeper and deeper. And when you get down to these deeper levels, the slow-moving outer planets, they go through enough shifts that there's things that go on that are noticeable changes across a lifetime. So, okay, we're starting with Jupiter. And so Jupiter is a big planet, like Earth would disappear in the red storm, in the big red storm, but it's also, a day on the Earth is 24 hours. And even though Jupiter is so much bigger than Earth, its day is like half of that. It turns around super fast, hence the super big storms. Here's a picture of Jupiter to Earth compared to Jupiter. And even on this scale, I'm not sure this exact scale. I think the Earth might be a little bit smaller in perspective to it, now that I'm looking at it. But you get the idea, it's much bigger. So Jupiter, when you're dealing with the transits, we see opportunities and luck and things going on, but we're looking at progressions. You're looking at a more spiritual side of things. You're looking at the evolution of your understanding or your comprehension of life. You're looking at your, I don't know if you call it common sense or your perspective, or your principles, or your outlook on how you see things. You really see the evolution of that, because you're just seeing shifts. Any little change with Jupiter in the progression is going to be a change in attitude or in your understanding or your outlook on life and how it guides you. And that outlook rarely stays the same across a lifetime. It goes through fluctuations, goes up and down, and it goes through changes. So there's changes that happen because of the opportunities and the circumstances that are around you. There's also changes that are evolving from where you started from, and just from your approach to life. You start with your understanding, set things up where Jupiter is, and it evolves. It moves a little bit further on. And as it does, your understanding grows and develops. You need to learn the understanding. What you put out comes back, Mars and Saturn. And Jupiter is always trying to understand between these two things. And it was there from the beginning, from your chart, from that first great beginning. So one of the things with the outer planets that I would like you to do, when we have our calendars and the days written across. I had them highlighted for each planet, but why don't you go in just on Jupiter and Saturn, and then on the other planets too, just mark a line in for whenever they change a degree. So you can see 7, 8 degrees, and it's just you're marking in whenever it changes the degree. It goes from 1 degree into the next. So this gives you the access to the degree symbols on a basic level. It's not as, like, it doesn't have all the subsystems that our program has, but it does have, it will give you the basics to start into this and to be seeing the major shift. Like Jupiter changes, every 5-6 days, every 5-6 days, and that's 5-6 years, half a Jupiter cycle. And Saturn, well, it can take a long time. My Saturn changes directly, goes retrogrades at a certain point, so it stays in the same degree for a big, huge part of my life. So I just did a couple of months here, but so like mine was all of November, December, so that's like 30, 45 years or more within the same degree. Then it finally changes in this year, and this would have been, it changed in 2010, 2011, 2012, but 2011, 2011 would have changed. So you still got the dates in the more or less approximate times of these. So it allows you to get close enough to contemplate the degree, to go into the degrees as the backup, as how the planets, as they evolve in their progressions, how they absorb information from the degrees they're in, as they absorb energy and frequencies and experiences, develop accordingly. Okay, so now I'm just going to make it a bit smaller to fit on the page. Okay, so here's my chart. It's on an old form, but these were handwritten, hand-done charts. Well, I made the forms, but I had to draw the charts forms kind of before computers. Okay, so here's my Jupiter. It's in Scorpio in the 3rd house. In my life, 100 years, it's only going to get to about 25 degrees Scorpio. It's only going to go this little bit. Let's look at it closer. So in this point, it's going to conjunct Mercury and Mars and square Saturn and Pluto. That's basically the story. It doesn't get to the IC, but it's in the 3rd house of learning and studying and traveling all my life. And perhaps exaggerating stories sometimes. So when I was young, it was very pronounced. When I was married, that was probably pronounced. Hopefully it's refined a little bit now. So let's like, I like to draw these on a chart so I can get the sense of perspective how much actually moves around. So you can see on the chart form here, I've drawn the 5-degree divisions for the pentans and put the pentans in. I've drawn the 6-degree, the purple lines for each of the hexagrams as they go along. So this is, and I've drawn the line out to the stars when they touch certain stars. So I haven't worked a lot with the stars. I don't like a lot of the interpretations of the stars. So I tend to think of the constellations. I tend to think of them as spiritual masters, as light, as special energy that's there. And if your planets touch them, there's a special, if you're living on a high enough frequency and you're not living totally grossed out, and you have a certain imagination, a certain sensitivity open up, these stars will come in and add a bit of light. All the stars in the sky, if you add all the light from all the stars in the sky as that hits the Earth, it's still 1/10 of the light that hits the planet. 90% comes from our sun. Even from the light from the planets is reflected from the sun. So 90% comes from our sun, and 10% comes from the stars. And each star is a piece of that. So, okay, we're just going to go along. So these are the printouts. And these printouts, I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to put these, I'm going to make an opportunity, a promotion where you can, an item where you can buy all your progressions with the sub-degrees on the hexagram, so they're all out there, and you can get the ephemeris for each planet. So you have the whole thing and you can work through it. So, Yeah, it takes a bit of time, but like if somebody was going through this and wanted to get these to work through these, they can, it's not a closed door, but the program has to be remade and it's not available yet. So there's enough little glitches and idiosyncrasies in it that it's worthwhile to remake the whole thing and make it like an app so it can be used in today's computers. This was made in the 80s and 90s. So it's an old program, but it was made for the printer, for the dot matrix printer. It wasn't made even for the screen. Like, so I adjusted it so it could be made to work with today's screens, right? With a friend. Again, that's maybe next year we can get this together. Okay, so it just puts the Jupiter star. Jupiter conjunct itself when it starts. It's in Scorpio. Goes through Pentagon, Libra, Scorpio, goes through the different pentans and the subpentans and the hexagrams and the subhexagrams, and it goes along. But it's only going to make, like this program, basically, any regular computer program, if you take one, if you do it off Matrix, if you do it from another program, you can get the list of progressions. I'm not sure if you can get the progressions of Jupiter and out. I know you can in Matrix just by going in and editing the searches. You must be able to do it in SolarFire and any other programs, but it'll give you the dates for the aspects. So this is a huge field of information, and the aspects give the time when the main critical periods go on. And even then, first my Jupiter comes up in conjunct Saturn. It's a June 23rd, 61. But it's going to stay within a degree of that. It hits the 7th degree in 57. And it doesn't get into the 8th degree till 82. So 57, 67, 77 to 82. That many years just within a degree of this aspect. Certainly it was, that whole period was my teenage years and dealing with authority, parents, growing up, getting my own, coming on my own, right up to finding my, not up to 82, goes up to 62. 57 to 62. So that really just goes up to, a whole period living in the South Shore in St. Lambert. Okay, well, we'll come through this, but there's only going to be, like I said, this program does everything in a very great detail. Gives you the hexagrams, the lines of the hexagrams, but there's the two aspects that it's going to square the Pluto in 86, conjunct the Mercury in 88, and conjunct the Mars in 97. So that's my series of Jupiter conjunct goes through my main T-square. So this was, there were struggles between having a personal life, having my marriages, and the beginnings and the ends of them, changes of outlook, understanding for sure, but also through this teaching astrology and adding new levels and building it up and getting the astrology classes together. So those were very intense years, but they were very intense times teaching. So here's my star map. So I just take the information from the computer printout. I take the star map. I've drawn the aspects that are going to happen along here for the year, for any time during anything in Scorpio. In my chart, it's going to make these aspects. No matter what's the moon going through it, anything going through here, it's going to conjunct Jupiter, it's going to semi-square Uranus, it's going to square Saturn, it's going to conjunct Mercury, it's going to conjunct Mars, it's going to go up to my IC. So this is just basically anything. I can use this for chart. Once I made this, you have the chart form with the stars, the star charts. You just have to draw the aspects in. And once you got that in, you've got, like here you see a bright first magnitude star around 10 degrees. And then you see there's second magnitudes just in that same area. Third magnitudes get put out, just out where the aspects and the planets are listed. And the fourth magnitudes are put on the right side of the Jupiter line. And the fifth magnitudes are outside the Vulcan line from there. So all of the stars are in this area, and you just put Jupiter down the path of the planet going down the center to see it. So in this process, it's going to touch